Hello. Paris, the so-called City of Lights, has always been a place people associate with love and beauty. But for my wife, Freya Grant, those bright streets and charming cafes had morphed into a constant reminder of the lies she'd been living for months. There she was, sitting across from her lover, Levi Martin, at a fancy spot called La Belle Époque. The smell of gourmet food and the soft clink of wine glasses surrounded them, but none of that could hide the panic I knew was gnawing at her from the inside. Freya, at 35, was everything a man could ever hope for, or at least that's what I thought. Smart, beautiful, sophisticated. She grew up in Lyon but made her way to Paris after we got married. I was that man she said was the love of her life. Austin Grant, an architect with a bit of fame to my name. My work had a way of combining sleek modern designs with the classic French flair, and I got plenty of praise for it. We were the perfect couple, or so everyone thought. We met like something out of a storybook, at a small cafe by the Seine, chatting about architecture, which we both loved. Before long, we were married and living the kind of life people envy. Our life seemed like a dream, filled with trips to the south of France, mingling with artists and thinkers, and throwing lavish parties at our place, a gorgeous apartment overlooking the river. My sketches and models were displayed like art around the house, and from the outside, it all looked flawless. But for Freya, it wasn't. Over time, the spark faded. What was once passion and excitement turned into routines and obligations. I was too busy with work, too focused on my projects, to notice that my wife was slipping away from me, lost in the image of what we were supposed to be. That's where Levi Martin came in. He was 42, a businessman with this rugged, irresistible charm that didn't belong in the corporate world he worked in. He had the kind of presence that made people look twice when he walked into a room, tall, athletic, with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. Freya met him at some art gallery opening. A friend of ours introduced them, and the moment he kissed her hand, something in her changed. She saw him as the opposite of me, daring, spontaneous, unpredictable. Where I was careful and methodical, he was wild and impulsive. At first, it was all harmless, just flirty chats over champagne, a little banter at social events. But it didn't take long before things went further. Freya started craving Levi, wanting the excitement and danger he brought into her life. One night, after too many glasses of wine and a few too many stolen glances, their flirtation turned into a full-blown affair. She knew it was wrong, but she couldn't stop herself. Levi made her feel alive again, like she was rediscovering a part of herself that had been buried under the weight of our marriage. For months, she led a double life. During the day, she was my devoted wife, the woman everyone admired. But behind the scenes, she was sneaking off with Levi, caught up in their passion. I was so absorbed in my work that I didn't see it, at least, that's what she thought. But tonight was different. Sitting there with Levi at La Belle Époque, something was off. Their night started as usual, with teasing smiles over fine wine and fancy dishes. Levi was his usual self, cracking jokes and going on about some new business deal. But Freya felt something was wrong, though she couldn't quite put her finger on it. Levi leaned back in his chair, wearing that smug smile he always had. "You're quiet tonight, Freya." "Everything okay?" he asked, brushing her hand with his fingers. Freya forced a smile. "I'm fine," she replied, though I know her better than that. "Just thinking, that's all." "What about?" Levi asked, his tone casual but with a hint of curiosity. "Life," Freya replied softly, her voice fading as her gaze drifted out the window. The city outside, usually full of comfort and familiarity, felt cold and suffocating now. It was like Paris itself was turning against her, and for the first time, she felt like she didn't belong in the place she once loved so much. Levi raised an eyebrow, probably ready to dig deeper, but before he could say another word, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced down, expecting a random text or email, maybe something from a friend, but when she saw the name on the screen, her blood froze. It was Austin. Her fingers shook as she unlocked the phone, a tightness forming in her chest. The message was short, but it hit her like a freight train. "Enjoy the wine, Freya. I hope it tastes better than betrayal." Her world shattered in that instant. She read the words again, disbelief and panic rising like bile in her throat. How did he know? How could he know? She felt Levi watching her, but she couldn't meet his eyes. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst out of her chest. "Everything okay?" Levi asked, his voice shifting from playful to concerned. Freya quickly flipped the phone face down, trying to hide the message and the terror racing through her mind. She forced a weak smile, though it barely covered the panic she felt. "It's nothing," she lied, her voice trembling just enough for Levi to catch on. He didn't press her, but she knew he could sense something was wrong. She tried to refocus on their conversation, on the dinner in front of her, but her mind wouldn't cooperate. Then, her phone buzzed again, the sound slicing through the air like a knife. She didn't want to look. She didn't want to know what else Austin had to say, but her hand moved on its own, unlocking the phone once more. Another message. "You always said you loved French cuisine. I wonder if you'll enjoy it as much when your life falls apart. Look around, Freya. Do you feel safe?" Her throat tightened, her pulse racing. She darted a glance around the restaurant, scanning the faces of strangers. Was Austin watching them? Was he somewhere nearby? The thought chilled her to the bone, her skin crawling with fear. Levi noticed her unease, his brow furrowing. "Freya, seriously, what's going on?" "You're acting strange, I need to leave," she whispered, her voice barely audible as she pushed back her chair, her legs shaky beneath her. Levi looked at her, bewildered. "What? Why? What's happening?" She stood up, unsteady, every nerve in her body on edge. How could she explain this? How could she tell Levi that the life she had built, the lies she had told, were collapsing around her? That the man she thought she had fooled, the husband who trusted her, knew everything? But before she could make a move, her phone buzzed again. She knew she should just leave it, but she couldn't stop herself from looking. The message on the screen made her knees almost buckle. "By the time you get home, I'll be gone. And so will the life you've been living. Consider this your last meal as Mrs. Grant." Bon appetit, tears welled up in her eyes as the finality of Austin's words hit her like a ton of bricks. He knew about the affair. He wasn't just bluffing. He was leaving her, and he wasn't coming back. In that moment, Freya realized she had lost everything: her marriage, her safety, her life as she knew it. Levi stood up now, alarmed by the sudden shift in her demeanor. "Freya, talk to me. What the hell is going on?" But she couldn't. Her throat was so tight she could barely breathe, let alone explain the nightmare that was unfolding. Without saying a word, she turned and fled the restaurant, her heels clicking rapidly on the marble floor as she bolted through the doors and out into the cool night air. The streets of Paris had quieted, the earlier buzz of the evening giving way to the stillness of the night. Freya hurried down the cobblestone streets, her mind a whirlwind of panic, fear, and regret. She couldn't go home. Not to that empty apartment. Not to the cold reality waiting for her. She had betrayed the man who had loved her more than anything, and now she had nothing left. Tears blurred her vision as she wandered aimlessly through the city. Memories of her life with Austin flooded her thoughts: the day they married, the trips they took, the mornings they spent together in quiet contentment. How had it all fallen apart so quickly? How had she been so stupid to think she could have it all? She thought she could juggle loving Austin and sneaking around with Levi without any consequences. But now, the truth was clear. She had destroyed everything. And the worst part? It was all her fault. Eventually, Freya found herself at the edge of the Seine, staring down at the dark water that reflected the city lights. The river looked so calm, so peaceful, but it mocked her now. Everything in Paris that had once seemed like a dream now felt hollow, empty. Her phone buzzed again, shattering the silence. She hesitated, knowing she shouldn't look, but her hand moved on its own. One last message from Austin. Goodbye, Freya. I hope you find what you're looking for. You won't find it with him or in the life you've been leading. But maybe one day you'll understand what you've lost, and just like that, it was over. Austin was gone, and so was the life she had taken for granted. Thanks for watching. What would you do if you caught your spouse cheating? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories of betrayal and revenge. Bye-bye.